Raffi, welcome to CFO at Home. Thanks for your time
Thank
today.
you for having me.
I meet weekly with a group of other financial coaches where we share common experiences and challenges. It's a great way for us just to bounce things off of each other. And that works great for kind of the practical things of personal finance. I'm trying to help this person put a budget together. I'm trying to give this person advice on how to quickly get rid of debt. Those kind of conversations go great. The ones that silence the room is eventually somebody will say, I was working with this couple and they were having these disagreements and we just couldn't get any traction in the conversation. And I'm sitting there and they're going at each other. What do you do in those situations? Radio silence 90% of the time because I think that's one of the things, it's one of the common denominators that we all run into and as financial coaches and feel a little unequipped to deal with it. In your work as a marriage counselor, great person to ask this question. How often do finances and financial disagreements show up in your work with couples?
Sure, finances is definitely a stressful situation for a lot of people, and people have different opinions about it, and they do get into fights. Finances is definitely cited as one of the major conflict points in marriages and sometimes the cause of divorces. So I totally hear that. It's funny when I'm in that situation and I hear people trying to figure out what to do with their money. I'm like, I don't know what to do with your money, but I can help you talk about it. That's my job. So, yes, I'm the one who can answer those questions about what do you do with that couple.
Exactly. So together, you and I can merge our superpowers and really help conquer the world here. This is
Yeah.
perfect. So, I want to get a little bit more into your experiences because money does come up in the conversations you have. In your experience, where does money rank in the topics that come up and the sources of tension that you've observed in marriages compared to other issues?
It's definitely up there on the top five. And I think the research bears that out, but also a lot of couples counselors will tell you it's a stressful thing. It's tough out there these days. And people are trying to make it, but also trying to deal with the fact that they just see things differently. And that's true for every couple. Some couples align really well on how they see finances and how what money means to them, but a lot of couples don't. I'm sure you've met different kinds of folks. People who are spenders versus savers. People who are very conservative with their money, who are very or who want to spend a lot. People who worry about it versus people who don't think, it's not that big a deal. And when you put those people together, and you try to get them to live together and build their financial situation together, it gets tough, and you get into those fights and those arguments. And I'm sure it's difficult for a person in your situation to help them make a plan when they can't even agree on what kind of plan they should be having or what kind of work they should be doing on this.
Exactly. So, from my perspective, what I've leaned into is in calling myself a financial coach, is labeling myself as a financial coach. One of the definitions of coaching is you're the people that you're coaching have to be coachable.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, if there is just fundamental conflicts and conversations about money, I think I'm able to deal with those on a very fundamental, basic level. But if it goes beyond that, I have to label clients not coachable at that time because you have to come in with a certain mindset. So that's the way I deal with it from my perspective. From your perspective as financial, excuse me, not as a financial counselor, as a marriage counselor, do you find that maybe money is a part of the situation? Maybe a couple brings that up frequently when they're talking to you initially, but as you work with them, are there other underlying issues? I guess what I'm trying to get at is, do you find situations where maybe a couple thinks money is the problem, but money is simply a
Yeah.
symptom of a deeper problem?
Well, money is one place where people can argue because it's stressful and because it's so present in our lives. What you guys are seeing, what financial coaches see, is two people who have some kind of fundamental disagreement or some kind of pain point that is just showing up in this place. So, for example, let's say you have a couple where the husband's taking care of the budget and the wife doesn't really know anything about it. So they come to you and they're trying to figure out how to fix up their budget or manage their finances. and he's resentful because the burden falls all on him. And she spends too much and doesn't pay attention to the budget, and he feels disrespected, he feels overburdened, and he's resentful. Meanwhile, she gets the message from him that he doesn't want her in the finances. So she feels blocked out. She feels nervous because she doesn't know what she can and can't spend. Sometimes she'll spend something and he'll yell at her, and sometimes he'll go and buy a big screen TV, and so she doesn't understand what's going on. And so all these things are there. I'm just making this up, but this is the kind of stuff that happens all the time. All these things are there, and you sit down with them and you say, okay, so let's talk about planning for the future. And there are these fires burning underneath. How are you going to help them? Of course they're not coachable in that moment. The problem is not what do we do with our finances. The problem first is how do we talk to each other? How do we engage with each other? How do we relate to each other around difficult topics, around topics where we don't agree? That's the problem that's going on here.
Okay, so as a marriage counselor, you're able to back couples up away from those kind of things. So even if they're coming to you and some of the things that they're expressing are financial situations, it sounds like you're able to get them to back up
Yeah.
and look at the more fundamental problems. That being said, are there certain fundamental issues that you find lie underneath these financial
I
disagreements?
think it can be as varied as the kinds of people and the kinds of couples. I gave one example, but maybe it's a question of she's very laid back and he's very a very uptight person. They want to work together, but he's so worried about the future and it stresses him out that she seems to think, "Don't worry, it'll be okay." And she goes nuts like he's worried about every little thing. He's got anxiety problems, so she's trying to calm it. Okay, that's another version of it, right? Or another version, maybe there's gender role issues. She's a very liberal, wants to be 50-50 in the house, and he's traditionally wants to feel like he's the head of the household. There are so many ways that the money arguments can come down to something more fundamental in a different flavor. It's hard to say, oh, yeah, this is the common thing. I could go on and on about ways that this conflict could come out for whatever reason it's coming out.
So, with all that being said, this is what you do for a living. All of these different issues are there, but the common denominator is that there are conflicts that are causing strain within a
Yeah.
relationship. As a marriage counselor, as you start to unpack those type of issues, could you give me an idea of just maybe what your fundamental process is to back people down from maybe defensive postures that they're bringing into the conversation and getting them on a level where they can actually communicate?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would call it backing them down. I would say we're going to move through it. Meaning, oh, okay, we're here. Let's go from there and see where it goes. Meaning, okay, let's do this one at a time. You're just going to explain to me what's going on for you, and you're just going to listen. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you, right, Vince? We're going to talk about, let me ask you, what is bothering you about the way that your wife, does the shopping or interact, whatever? She spends so much money, and I don't even know where the money goes. Okay, and what about that bothers you? I'm worried about our future finances. Ah, okay. I want to get them to understand what the feelings are. You're feeling worried about the future. That makes sense, right? Or again, we might get to you're feeling resentful of your wife ignoring your requests. Whatever it is. What is bothering you here? And then I want her to understand you. I want her to be able to say, "Oh, you're bothered by the fact that you are worried that we're not going to have enough money in 5 years." I can understand that. Just for her to understand, she doesn't have to agree with your perspective, but to understand what it is and to feel that with you, that helps. And then we'll switch and you'll understand what's with her. She'll say, "Look, I never had to worry about this. I'm really confident and it drives me crazy. I'm really irritated about the way you speak to me about money." Ah, you're irritated. You feel disrespected. You feel irritated. Yeah. Okay. Once we understand what you feel and why you feel that way, I don't have to agree with you. But now that I understand what your pain is and you understand what my pain is, we can start working out some different way of doing this.
In the financial coaching world, one of the things we do try to dabble a little bit into the psychology just on a basic level. And one thing we talk about a lot is what we call money stories.
Yeah.
And a money story is basically understanding how the other person grew up and therefore how that shapes their view of money.
Absolutely.
We all come in with these perspectives. And speaking for myself, I thought my perspective was the perspective. And it took me a while to figure out, hey, I'm with a person right now. I'm sharing a life with a person who just fundamentally sees the world differently from a money perspective, not because anybody's right or anybody's wrong here. It's just different. How important is it for people to understand that perspective and just the views of money that people bring into a
I mean,
relationship?
you are hitting on a key point of all of the work that I do, which is that we all come in thinking that our perspective is the perspective on everything. That's how we are. If you've ever met a teenager, they are sure they are right about everything. And the job of becoming an adult is expanding and realizing, you know what, there are other perspectives. It's very hard to keep a relationship if you assume that you are right on everything. And certainly when it comes to money, there's a lot of disparities. How you grew up is not the way I grew up. Some people grew up in dire poverty. Some people grew up not even thinking about money because their parents gave them everything they ever needed. Some people had to work, some people didn't. So those are our money stories. And yet, every two people are going to have different money stories. When you're lucky, they align nicely that it never comes to conflict. But for most people, it's different enough that it needs to be talked about at some point. So the process I was describing to you just now, not only do I want to understand how you feel about it, but let's understand how you got there. Like, why are you so worried about our financial future? When I was a kid, this, that, the other. Okay, so when you were a kid, your dad always complained. He was always worried about money, and that made you feel afraid. Yeah, okay, I get that. Again, just tracking you, learning about you, understanding you. That's what it means to be in a relationship. I don't have to agree with you, but if I understand the way you see the world, we are that much more connected.
So we have these conversations. We understand each other's concerns and fears and priorities. We understand how we got to where we are philosophically. That's great. But how do we then take that and merge that into, at least from my perspective, the way I look at it, we have to have a common vision at the end of the day to be able to work together. Just because I understand where you're coming from and your concerns and how you got there, and you understand my perspective, that doesn't mean that we agree. So we still have different visions and different priorities and all of that. So how do we take all of that raw information that we work through and build a consensus of how we're going to move forward?
So let's talk specifically about the money area, right? Let's imagine this extreme different situation where he is very nervous about money. And let's assume for right now they have a decent amount of money. Because if you are indigent, if you don't have enough money to survive, then it's difficult any which way. It doesn't really matter what answer you have, it's difficult. So let's assume it's a family that has enough money to get by and can, stock up some savings. So he's still very worried about the future because he grew up in a certain way, Great Depression parents or whatever it is. And she sees they're comfortable and she says, look, it's going to be okay. We're going to continue investing. It's going to be, things will be fine. So there's a lot of stress about how much does she buy and how much control does he have and all kinds of ways this comes out. And you're sitting with them trying to figure out, okay, what do we do going forward? If he can understand her and empathize with her and say, you know what, I can understand how much it bothers you to be restricted and to feel controlled and criticized. That must be really terrible. And she understands him. I can see why you feel worried and you want to have some sense of security, and my shopping really throws you off. So when they both empathize with each other and understand the other person's perspective, they are sensitized to that. And now we can work on solutions, bringing that all together. So a solution will have to include the fact that he needs to feel secure about the finances, and she needs to feel not controlled and put down for what she's doing, assuming that it makes sense, assuming she's not crazy spending. So you're with a financial coach and you say, okay, is the spending habit acceptable? Are we going over our limits? Are we going to be okay in the future? Is this investment plan working? Okay, so he may want to be more secure and she may feel okay and want to be not controlled. We can incorporate those two goals as part of what we're doing going forward. So you can guide them and say, you know what, I think this is all working out, but to be really secure, you probably want to do this. And then, other than that, as long as she's not maxing out the credit card, you guys are fine. So now we've addressed their problems, but we understood what the problems were that needed addressing. So we're able to come up with plans that attend to each person's needs. And that's how we get through this.
In your experience as a marriage counselor, I think control has inadvertently come up in our conversation here a couple of times. Another thing that I run into is that some people are, I think traumatized might be a strong word, but so emotionally impacted by what's gone on earlier in their life in terms of money. My father controlled all the money in the family example, and I saw that my mother suffered from that, and therefore I'm not going to let anybody control money ever. I'm not going to give up control of that because I saw what happens when my mother gave up her agency in that
Yeah.
situation, as an example,
Look,
not my story,
yeah.
but as an example. So, because I think compromise is so much a part of this, if you have a person that emotionally just has a difficulty kind of seeding from their perspective and coming up with a compromise way of doing things as opposed to just holding on to their preconceived notions, is there a way as a marriage counselor you walk people through that kind of situation?
Sure. Okay. So, Vince, let's take the story you just told. And just for the purpose of this exercise, Vince, you'll be my wife. Okay? Yeah.
Only for the purposes of this conversation, there is no legal bond or expectation of beyond
Okay, good. Just
the
want to clear about
sample.
that.
Yes, go.
Okay, Vince. So you have this thing. You saw that your mother was she lost. She suffered a lot because dad controlled all the money. You know what? I understand how that could be really stressful for you, and I totally get why it's so hard for you to feel controlled and feel not independent around our finances. That makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm really sorry you're having that experience. Am I understanding what it's like for you here?
Yeah, yeah. You've expressed that.
Okay, great. And I really do care that you have that. I really don't want you to feel that way. I would love if we can work on our finances together in a way that we're being responsible and also that you don't feel controlled. It's important to me as your husband that you don't feel controlled, but that we work together and that you don't for me, can I share a little bit where I'm coming from if that's okay? I'm worried that you're not going to listen to anything I say and if I have any problems, you don't want to hear it. And that's stressful for me. Can you understand that part?
I understand.
Okay, now we can unmarry ourselves, Vince. That's the problem.
Okay, let me say one thing before
Oh yeah,
we
you're the one.
unmarry
Yeah.
ourselves. Now I understand why I love you so much. And
All
scene.
right.
Okay, go ahead.
So that's the process I use where if I understand you and I empathize and I'm sensitive to that. So now I know that our solution has to come with helping you not feel controlled. There is definitely a way to do that for us to partner and you not to feel controlled. And you have to understand that I'm worried that you're going to run off and not listen to any of the things that we agree on. And that's scary for me. And so now we are in sync. We have a disagreement. We're going to work on coming closer together. But I care about you and your needs. You care about me and my needs. We're going to be okay. We'll figure this out.
And the interesting thing is, in that example, you're not a third party counseling two people on what to do.
So that's
You
I
are
walk them through that process when I'm the marriage counselor.
okay. Oh,
I teach
okay.
them
Got you.
how to do
Got
that.
you.
Now,
Okay.
it is
Okay.
not natural for people to do at first blush.
Okay.
I teach you to do
Got you.
that with the goal of get out of here and do that yourselves. Right? I don't want people dependent on me for their whole lives. We practice the skills, we understand how they work, we get better at it, and then go on your way.
Okay. So you're teaching them how to have these conversations amongst themselves because you're not here to solve problems. Whatever two consenting adults decide to do at the end of the day is their business.
Yeah.
You're just getting them to a point where they can hopefully you're laying out a framework for them to have a respectful, empathetic conversation
Yep.
that can hopefully lead to them building consensus as two adults.
Yeah, and we'll have these conversations in session. But again, the goal for me is not to figure out what to do with their finances. The goal for me is that they can talk about it and figure out themselves because I can't figure out what to do with their finances, but I can help them talk about that. And as far as consensus goes, when it comes to their finances, usually there's a way through. There are some problems that don't have good solutions. And so the goal is not necessarily to find the answer and to make this problem go away. The goal is to be able to manage this conflict in a way that leaves us feeling connected. You know what I'm saying? If you want to move to California and I don't want to move to California, That may doesn't moving to Wisconsin halfway across doesn't solve our problem. That's not a good compromise. We'll move halfway there. Like we may not be able to find an answer that satisfies both of us. But if I really care how much you want to go to California and you really care about how much I like the mountains and the snow, okay, we're going to have an okay relationship, even though there's an unsolved problem.
But the key is understanding that. I've tried to workshop this to be a little bit more gentle, but in my mind, I've often thought with couples, at the end of the day, I don't really care what you do with your money. I want you to agree together on what you're going to do. And as a financial coach, I'm here to give you information and give you a perspective on, from a financial standpoint, what is prudent to do. But at the end of the day, as long as the two of you agree on it, you're free to do whatever you want to do. As far as being two consenting adults, there's this tendency I've seen to try to bring in an arbitrator, and I have to set ground rules really quick. I'm not on your side. I'm not on your side. Ultimately, you two need to be on each other's side. And if there's anybody pushing back, it needs to be the two of you in unity pushing back on me.
Yeah. Now I'm doing what you're doing, but I'm even a step back. I don't care if you agree on the finances. That you want them to agree on the finances. I don't care if you agree on the finances. I want you guys as two adults in a relationship to feel connected, to be in love, to be happy together, even if you don't agree. Right? If I'm going to send you off to Vince, he'll hopefully get you guys to agree because it's very hard if you want to spend more and you want to save more. Maybe there's a compromise that you can agree on. But even if not, my job is to help you guys have a good marriage, independent of whether there's agreement.
So I'm curious as to where you stand, and this is a little bit outside of the having the conversations with people, where you stand on some of the common practices that, as financial coaches, we have conversations with people about working together with their finances. One is, there are some coaches, I'm not one of them, that have a tendency to be prescriptive about the mechanics of managing money, whether you have joint accounts or separate accounts, that type of thing, or have a hybrid approach. From the perspective of a marriage counselor, do you see that as being irrelevant?
You mean the specific practices they use to manage their money?
Yeah, because there are some, and not only they're licensed marriage counselors, who strongly think in order for you to have unity in your marriage, you have to have joint accounts and there has to be visibility on both sides. And if that's not going to happen, that's going to lead to a disconnect. So, in as we dabble into the world of psychology, even as financial coaches, sometimes people lean in that direction.
I think that if you're going to a financial coach and they have a particular approach, so that's an approach. And if you don't like that, you find somebody else. Do I have a perspective? I don't have much of a perspective on the finances. Relationally speaking, I think it's hard for people to fully get invest in the relationship if they're holding things back. So I have not seen people really be in deep connected marriages when they have separate accounts, not because practically there's a financial issue, but because they seem to be holding back from each other and not fully trusting and leaning in. I'm sure there are plenty of people who do it and it works for them, and that's fine. So again, I don't tell people you guys gotta change your account system if you guys want to. But usually, if I see two people who are married and they have separate accounts and they have separate spending, etc., the sense I get is that there's a little bit of a lack of trust. And if they're interested in talking about that, we will. I'm not here to tell them you should do it differently. I'm here to help them get where they want to go.
And maybe a better way of asking the question is, and it's just me asking you for advice as a financial coach, let's just
Okay.
say, is from a marriage perspective, from a unity perspective, because that statement makes an assumption that I think you just validated. So you can, as a marriage counselor, see that if something like that is going on, it seems like your opinion is do it if you want to, but that maybe isn't the best for unity within your marriage. Then, to me, as a financial coach, if I'm going to give that advice validates that that advice is not just hogwash from
Yeah.
from a psychological perspective.
I think in most cases, it indicates there's something missing here. It's if you wouldn't let your wife drive your car, I guess that means you don't really trust her. Now, if it happens to be that she crashes cars every couple months, that would make sense. But in the absence of any reason to mistrust her driving abilities, there's a little bit of a disconnect there in the relationship. Sorry, no, I don't want to show you my finances. No, you can't know the code to my whatever. Like, what am I holding back from my spouse? Now, of course, my diary, if I have a diary, I don't have to show her everything in my head, but there's a sense like, oh, this is private to me. If my finances are private to me and there's something there that I don't want you to see, again, like, what am I holding back from you in life? Where are we not opening ourselves up to each other? I feel like there's a lack there. I feel like you're missing more. You could have more. You could have a more open. Imagine having a relationship where you can really share everything and not have to worry about it. That kind of trust and that kind of connection is super valuable. But again, if you're not at that place right now, that's fine. That's not my time. It's not my position to push that.
So, Rafi, I've really appreciated your time today. We've hit, I think, on a lot of great points on this whole subject of the intersection of managing finances and managing a healthy relationship. Before I let you go, is there any kind of parting advice that you would have just for couples who are seeking to gain more unity on their finances?
Sure. If people are coming to you, if a couple comes to a financial coach and they're on the same page and they're going in the same direction, so great. But if you need financial help in your life and you and your partner are at odds, you probably want to go to a marriage coach or a marriage counselor before you do the financial coaching to be able to talk about it, not to get on the same page about what we should do about finances, but to learn how to have those conversations in a way that leaves you feeling connected instead of opposed. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every couple has conflicts. And I wish more people would do couples counseling when it was a great situation rather than when things were falling apart. So there's lots of coaches and counselors out there that can do it. And for some people, just getting the information online. I wrote a book about this to help people, which I guess we're going to transition into talking to in a minute. But that's why I wrote the book, is so people can figure out how do we talk to each other about these difficult topics like money and all the other good stuff.
And there's not a better transition than that. Your book is the Couples Communication Handbook. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been doing this work for a long time and seeing the same things come up over and over. I really wanted to expand my reach. So I wrote this book, The Couples Communication Handbook: The Skills You Never Learned for the Marriage You Always Wanted. And it takes people through the process that I do in session, and it helps them understand how do we speak to each other? How do we engage over these difficult topics without things blowing up, without it causing more conflict? And you can walk away, even if you don't agree about how best to spend your money, you can walk away from a conversation on that feeling like, we're on the same team, we are connected, we're going to get through this. And that is super valuable.
And applies to so many more aspects to our lives outside of money that, hey, that's great. So start with the basics, get on the same page about life, and then the money conversations will flow a lot easier. So, again, Rafi, I really want to thank you for your time. Your online headquarters where the book can be found is the communicationbook.com. We've also got the show notes already loaded up with your Instagram, your LinkedIn, the YouTube for your practice. If you want to give your practice a little bit of a plug by name here, I'll give you an opportunity to
Yeah.
do that as
The
well.
Baltimore Therapy Center at baltimoretherapycenter.com. If you're in the Baltimore area, come on by. We'll have a chat. And if you're not, then go to thecommunicationbook.com and you'll find me there.
All right. So no matter what your situation is, you can get great feedback from Rafi. The Baltimore Therapy Center, YouTube and Facebook will be a part of the show notes. So again, one more time, I want to thank you for your time today because those sessions that I was talking about that I have weekly with financial coaches, those are coming up here in just a couple of hours. I have communication that I can share with those guys, maybe a couple of tips and a book maybe they should read, because I'm assuming even if you are in the position like we are, where maybe you're looking to give people advice or at least understand what's going on when those people get into those squabbles in front of us. Your book's probably a pretty good read for people in that
I would
situation
hope
as well.
so.
I will be sure to spread the good word. I want to thank you for your time today. Thanks for being on See It Full at Home.
Thanks for having me.